And we're going to share the screen. All right, good deal. Hopefully everybody can see the my screen here. And we are going to start this presentation here. That over there. And there we go. Okay, so DSNPs and FIDE. Now we're throwing in more new acronyms. So DSNP stands for Dual Special Needs Plan. As I said, the easiest way to think of this is you have both Medicare and Medicaid. And now we're entering the world of HIDE and FIDE. Um, the each state is a little bit different. Ohio is only dealing with FIDE plans, that is fully integrated dual eligible. All right, so they are still dual eligible, so they both still have, or they still have both Medicare and Medicaid. But now what's happening is the plan itself integrates both the Medicare and the Medicaid all into one plan. The way it used to work was you put them on an Advantage plan, and that would take care of, that would be the primary. And then Medicaid would be the secondary. It was not an integrated plan at all. And then depending on what county in Ohio you lived in, it was even more fun. Certain counties had what's called My Care Ohio. Other counties did not. So they just had regular Medicaid and the state was paying as the secondary. Whereas if you were in a My Care Ohio plan, or My Care Ohio plan county, then a private insurer was acting as that Medicaid secondary. And which secondary insurer you got just depended on your county. So it was a mess. It still is a mess, real honestly, but it, I think, is getting a little bit easier. So, all right. So we are going to look at finding a new route. Okay, so marriage of Medicare, Medicaid into one plan did officially begin this year. And depending on the state, I think there's 8 this year that we're starting this year. And then those 8 states all kind of agreed to say, okay, we're going to have everything ready to go as of 2030. So some of those states are using both FIDE and HIDE. HIDE stands for highly integrated dual eligible, whereas FIDE is fully integrated dual eligible. We don't have to worry about HIDE, which I think is great. I think that's going to make life a whole lot easier for us. Really, we began kind of hearing about HIDE and FIDE back in 24. There's another wave of states that are supposed to be starting in 2027. And as I said, everything here should be, for those initial states, should be finished, quote unquote, finished by 2030. However, Ohio decided, yeah, we're going to bump this up and make it finished and ready to go by 2027, which makes life very fun. Okay, so a little bit just kind of for our goals for the evening, we're going to define and differentiate those DSNP and FIDE plans. There will be a second goal of learning what opportunities that FIDE market can offer. And then goal 3 is determine a way to market plans to those varying cost share levels. If you're familiar with the dual special needs plans, you know that there's QMB and QMB plus, SLMB, SLMB plus, QDWI, QI, FBDE. So how do we figure out what our clients are, what level they are, and what to do best to help them? All right, so a little history on the DSNP to FIDE transformation. So as I said, we did know, probably early 2024 that this was happening. We had it pretty well set in stone at that point. And then fall of 2024, those companies that wanted a contract with the state of Ohio had to apply for those contracts. Those four companies that won those contracts are Anthem, CareSource, Buckeye, and Molina. I highly recommend, if you're going to be in the DSNP world at all, I highly, highly, highly recommend you get all of them. There are some slight differences in the plans, which obviously, different plans for different people, but the networks are so different. And even just in Central Ohio, with Anthem not being in network with Ohio State, that eliminates a huge plan that people would want, do want, but can't get. So I definitely recommend getting Molina, CareSource, and Buckeye on top of Anthem. And then January 1 of 25, those federal guidelines kind of took effect. And so all of the alignment was being discussed and ready to go for 26. The next generation then of the MyCare Ohio started on January 1 of 2026. It started in 29 counties and has grown since then. I've got a map to show you where it's at. And then finally, with Ohio deciding to bump up their complete integration into the FIDE plans, January 1 of 2027, those managed care organizations, so Anthem, Molina, CareSource, Buckeye, they got to be ready to go. And everybody who is on Medicaid, who is a DSNP eligible person, whatever level they are, they need to be in the proper level as of January 1st of 27, which sounds like a nightmare. Okay, so some changes, and by the way, don't worry about copying all of these down. I'm going to be sending out the slide deck to everybody. So the DSNP up to now, it was, like I said, a managed care plan for people with both Medicare and Medicaid. There were a lot of different carriers: Anthem, Aetna, Molina, Humana, Devoted, United Health, CareSource, WellCare, the health plan. They all had different levels of those DSNP plans. So could have been a fully integrated style plan, or it could have just been giving some extra benefits for the Part B premium payment. It could have given prescription drug coverage. And the levels of those cost protection Medicaid levels, you would have the LIS, low income subsidy, levels 1 through 4, which handles prescription drug coverages. The QDWI, which that is the lowest level. It basically says you qualify for Medicaid and you have some disability that you are still able to work. Very few people, I don't know if I've ever even seen a QDWI, but very few people actually qualify through that. There's QI, qualified individual, SLMB, SLMB plus, QMB, QMB plus, and FBDE. Now, what we see mostly is the SLMBs, the QMBs, and the FBDE. Those are, I would say, anybody who has dealt with DSNPs, that's what we see 99% of the time. And then up until 2025, you could change their plan quarterly. There was an SEP, a special enrollment period, where you could change their plan from one DSNP plan to another. This is why, like I said earlier, it was very hard, it can be very hard to keep DSNP people on your book, just because they can change from Anthem to Aetna to United Healthcare to Devoted all in 1 year. Now, what's here, starting in 2026 and moving forward until the state decides they want to change it again, those FIDE plans, they are managed care for people only on Medicare, Medicaid, just like the DSNPs. However, the MAPD, the Medicare Advantage with Part D, will be the only payer. All right, like I said before, Medicaid paid as the secondary to your Advantage plan. Now the Advantage plan you put them on handles everything. There was a state-by-state bid process, and each state had a certain number of contracts. Ohio had 4. As I said, those carriers who won those contracts are Anthem, Molina, CareSource, and Buckeye. Um, had some questions. I've talked to other agents. Why didn't United Health or Aetna get one of those? Because Aetna was a MyCare Ohio affiliate, and between Aetna and United Health, they're the two largest carriers in the U.S. So how is it that tiny CareSource and Buckeye can get these contracts? I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I don't know all the politics behind it, but my understanding is United Healthcare did not see the FIDE world as profitable as they wanted it to be. Whereas these other carriers, like for instance Anthem, they did. So that's why they went for those contracts. The levels of cost protection are still the same. So you can still be an LIS level 1 through 4, QDWI, QI, SLIMB, SLIMB Plus, QIMBY, QIMBY Plus, and FBDE. However, those people that qualify for the FIDE plan have to be a SLIMB Plus, a QIMBY Plus, or an FBDE. So if you are a SLIMB or a QIMBY, a QDWI or a QI, you are not going to qualify for one of these FIDE plans. And that is the major issue that we're going to run into here in about 3 months when AEP starts. And then beginning in 2026, this year, monthly SEPs exist only for those who want to go to a FIDE plan. So if you were a SLIMB Plus and you want to change from a regular DSNP plan to a FIDE plan, because they both coexist this year, you could do that, but you could not leave a FIDE plan and go to a regular DSNP plan. Also, if you were maybe a QIMBY, not a QIMBY Plus, but a QIMBY, you could not go to a FIDE plan. So it's really intricate, and most DSNP people do not know their levels. So we have to make sure we're checking that and being very careful with that. All right, so here's the rollout phase. Bottom line, our phases, the counties that are in gray, that's where everything started January 1. It's your major population centers, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, those surrounding counties. And then every month, starting in April 1st, May 1st, June 1st, July 1st, August 1st, there's a handful of more counties that get these FIDE plans. So for instance, I changed some of my people in Franklin County for a January 1st, 2026 effective date to a FIDE plan. And that was totally fine. They were eligible for that, but they didn't necessarily have to take that plan. 2027, they will have to take that plan if they qualify. And then I had someone in, where does she live? She lives in Licking County. Licking County, we could not write a FIDE plan until April 1st. So I went back out in March and changed her regular DSNP plan to a FIDE plan. All right. So bottom line is what all of this is going to be, what it's going to mean for us. There's going to be a lot of assistance that we have to give, but there's also going to be a lot of opportunity. Where there's chaos, there's going to be opportunity for sure, and there's a ton of chaos always in the DSNP world. So as I said, those FIDE plans are only available for SLIMB Plus, QIMBY Plus, and FBDE. In the state of Ohio, there are about 400,000 people who qualify as a DSNP. Let me see, Nanette. So Perry does not have to change by August 1st as long as they're changed by January 1st. That's correct. That is correct. This year, they're not required to change. They could change as of August 1st, but they don't have to change until 2027. Yep, great question. Oh, so there's about 400,000 people in the state of Ohio who qualify for some level of DSNP plan. 250,000 of those would qualify for a FIDE, SlimB plus, QuimB plus, FBDE. So as I said earlier, that's the majority of people. Those monthly SCPs allow you to enroll those people. So for instance, going back to Nanette's question there, as of August 1st, anybody in Perry County could be put on a FIDE plan, but they don't have to. They could start August 1st. They could start September 1st. They could start October 1st. But they're not required to start until January 1st. And then, and this is the big thing, the non-FIDE beneficiaries will not have a DSNP plan available beginning in 2027. So all of those people who we have on DSNP plans, whether it's with Devoted or United or Aetna or whomever it is, they will be kicked off. From the way it has been explained to us, is they will not have a plan. So that's 150,000 people who need to get changed. All of those people who, they're used to the groceries and the extra money for vision and over the counter and all of that stuff, they're not gonna probably get it. Okay. Those CSNP plans, though, CSNP, throwing in some more acronyms for you, those of you new to Medicare. CSNP stands for Chronic Special Needs Plans. All right, that's for people who qualify for those plans based on a chronic special need or two or more. They could offer some kind of cost sharing for those people, especially those people who are non-FIDEs. For instance, Devoted has an amazing cost protected CSNP that is anybody, according to the plan this year, anybody who is a DSNP who has one of those chronic special needs, for instance, I think COPD is one, you can write them on a CSNP that has cost share protection. So a lot of their copays will be eliminated on that particular CSNP plan. Assuming it's going to go into next year, because Devoted did a very good job creating their CSNP plans, and I think preparing those plans to be available for the future. That could be a very good option. So question comes up, what do we put regular DSNP people on? Great question. That's where we're going. So it kind of depends on your approach to this. As I said, 250,000 people in Ohio are going to have to be squeezed onto one of four plans. The Anthem, oh gosh, it just left my mind. Anthem, Care Source, Molina, and Buckeye. So that 150,000 in their plans. So what do we do with them? All right. So this is kind of the way the world exists right now. All right. It could be a little tough to understand here. In your biggest circle, that's all Advantage plans. It's anybody who's on Medicare who you would qualify for an Advantage plan. A smaller circle within that, those are your dual eligibles. So that's, as I said, 400,000 people in Ohio. A smaller circle are those FIDE people. All right, that's 250,000. Those people are FBDE, SlimB plus, QuimB plus. What happens about the QDWI, the SlimBs, and the QuimBs? If you see a QI, that's amazing because I've never seen one. But as I said, if they're really looking for that cost share protection, look for the CSNPs. Those could be a very good overlap for those people. So there are CSNPs. As I said, the Devoted plan is one. I believe in some states, Aetna has a cost share protection. I have to look to see if they have a cost share protection here in Ohio. But that's where I'm going to look first. The The biggest thing here is knowing those plans, being extremely educated with those plans as they're coming out for 2027. Um, yeah, Aetna does have that C-SNP, and that those C-SNPs, even though they don't have that full cost share protection, they still might be a good option. For those of you who don't know what that full cost share protection is, it basically means all of your medical expenses are zero and all of your prescription drug coverage is zero, which is what it's always been for D-SNPs. Now, with these FIDE plans being implemented, all those people, the FBDE, the SlimB Plus, the Quimby Plus, they still have full cost sharing protection. So they still pay zero. But the Quimby, SlimB, QDWI, QI people, those people most likely will not. So finding the plan, because nothing's changed with their income status, and not all of them didn't win the lottery, so they don't have this massive influx of cash. So they're used to not paying for anything when they go to the doctor, and now all of a sudden 2027 rolls around cold turkey, they got to pay for everything. Um, so those C-SNPs will be a very good cost share protection tool. All of the companies that have the C-SNPs, Aetna, United Healthcare, Humana, and Devoted, they all have C-SNPs that have um, lower copays, lower co-insurance than the average plan. Again, they will have to qualify just like everybody else for a C-SNP plan. So that is to say they have heart issues, lung issues, diabetes. Those are your kind of your big three for those C-SNP qualifications. Um, but as I said, Devoted does have a nice cost share protection. They have two C-SNP plans. One is not cost share protected for D-SNPs. One is. And I don't remember the number of that plan off the top of my head. I can include that in the email that I send out following this. But assuming that is still there next year, I talked to Bob Miller from Devoted, and he said to his knowledge, it's still going to be here next year, which would be great because that's going to be uh, that could be a huge boost for those people who no longer qualify for that full cost share protection, the not being FPDE, SlimB Plus, Quimby Plus. Um, I think United Healthcare actually might have a cost share protection plan as well. I'd have to check that out. But um, the as I said, the biggest thing is education for us. And this is where it's got to start. We have to know exactly what's going on with these plans. It's going to be a nightmare. I know it is. I'm not looking forward to it, but TLC has, I think, always done a great job in the past of providing that information in their pre-AEP kickoff. I know some of you have gone there in Miamisburg. Um, I have not seen a date on that yet this year, but it's going to be just as big this year as it has in the past, probably bigger because of all of this going on with FIDE. So if you can get to that, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. For those of you who aren't familiar with what it is, TLC, our FMO, well, actually they're NMA now. TLC does a pre-AEP. It's about a month or so before AEP kicks off. They do a meeting. They invite all the carriers there. We learn about the different plans, kind of what could be good, what might not be good from the different carriers. It's a good time to meet and greet, talk to other agents, see what they're doing about this. I highly recommend you go. Additionally, each of the carriers, they're starting to put out their information for their first looks for 2027. Take advantage and go to those because carriers like Devoted or United Healthcare, they know that they're outside of the FIDE world right now in Ohio, and so they're still going to want to service clients. They're still going to want to grow. So they're going to do all that they can to let you know exactly what they have for those non-FIDE qualifiers. All right. Bottom line, I think this is, I don't like to read verbatim off the slide, but this is big. Of course, always do what's right for the client, but exhaust all special plan options. There is going to be, um, there's just going to be some DSNP people that don't qualify for CSNPs, and they're going to have to go into the general population and get these standard advantage plans that we were putting anybody on. So it's going to be very unfortunate for them because they're not used to that. I'm sure some of them will not be able to afford that. So get creative. All right. Look at the CSNPs, like I said. Look into. I know that there's always people who fail to recertify their Medicaid every year. So make sure you're talking to clients and make sure that they have their certifications um, for Medicaid done, and up to date. Because if that's not up to date, they won't qualify for any. And who knows, they might be a FBDE, but they don't have it because they didn't recertify. So make sure they're doing that. Additionally, those cash back plans, Medigold has one, Humana has some, Devoted has one. Gosh, I think everyone has some, at least one at this point. Medigold, Devoted, and Humana, those are the ones that, typically speaking, we see more often. Get creative with those. A lot of people will go for the cash back if they know that there's more cash in their Social Security check every month. They say, "Oh, that might make up for me having, a plan that's not as good as last year or the past 5, 10 years." Additionally, those hospital indemnity plans. All right, those are still anybody who's on Medicaid definitely still qualifies for those. They have guarantee issue up until 75 if you're going GTL and up to 80 if you're going Medico. So look into those. They can cover those hospital bills. They can cover a cancer policy for relatively cheap. I mean, I wrote one for I think $45 a month the other day, and um, this lady, she just wanted hospital coverage and outpatient surgery and physical therapy. So you can get pretty creative with those if you need more assistance on how to market those or what to do with those. We do have another training on that is on our YouTube page, but I'll be glad to talk with you about it. And I think those are going to be highly useful coming up, especially for those DSNP people. If you can put them on, for instance, a those Slimby, Quimby's, QDWI people who don't qualify for the FIDE, maybe put them on a cash back plan. Like let's just say Medigold. This year, the Medigold cash back is $160 a month. If it's still the same next year, great. They get $160 back on their Social Security check. But if they take 60 of that and put it towards a hospital indemnity policy that's covering hospitalization and maybe a cancer policy, well, now those two biggest costs that people get scared of, they're completely taken care of with money that, you know, is on the cash back. It's not extra money per se out of their pocket. So getting creative is gonna have to happen at this point. Um, Also, you should know that if someone does qualify for a CSNP, those monthly SEPs do still exist and will still exist next year. Um, so if you write them on a certain plan, just a regular run-of-the-mill plan, a Med Mutual Classic, for instance, in January, and then you come to find out they call you and they say, "Hey, this isn't covering my COPD real well." Well, great. Let's go back out and see if they qualify for those CSNP plans. COPD will qualify you for a CSNP. So go out and see if that's a better option for them. You can change them monthly on those. So if they want the CSNP plan and then they realize, oh, I should have stuck with that Med Mutual Classic plan. Well, great, go back to it. That's fine. You can do that monthly. And as I said, that regular MAPD, getting creative with just the plans themselves, knowing what the plans will cover and where their deficiencies are. That's where going to these first looks with the carriers. That's where going to the TLC AEP, pre AEP kickoff event. That's what's going to help you get creative. Last year, I did put out, or the past few years, I have put out a kind of a one sheet for all of the most popular plans in the Central Ohio area. I'm going to continue to do that. I've already got the formatting ready to go. I'm just waiting on information on those plans, but I think I'm going to use that more than I ever have in 2027. So I will definitely be putting that out. Make sure you have that in your bag. It'll be a good tool for you. All right, and then putting in the work. It's going to take putting in the work right now. All right, June 24th is not ever too early to start for AEP, and I think it starts with, if you have a current book of business, looking at your book, what plan you have them on, looking up their level of Medicaid, and saying, all right, well, I've got these 25 people who are FBDE, Quimby Plus, Slimby Plus. We want to make sure we move them over to an Anthem, a Care Source, a Molina, what's the other one, Buckeye. We got to get those people done. And then I have these other 25 people that, oh, well, they're DSNPs and they don't qualify for a FIDE plan. So we need to get them off of what they currently have, because that's going to be gone at the end of the year, and move them to that next the next plan that's going to be best for them. So schedule them now. It's not too early to schedule them. October 1st, you can start marketing those plans, showing them those plans. Remember, you cannot accept any applications until October 15th. So I know for people with smaller books of business, maybe you don't even want to meet until October 15th. Totally fine. But I would say, at least at this point, identify those people and start calling them, trying to get them on your schedule. Work with value-based providers. I know in Central Ohio, we have Oak Street, we have Dedicated. Out in the Kettering area, where Tim is, they have Dedicated. Actually, Dedicated is all over the state. Oak Street's in certain parts of the state. But then there's standalone value-based providers. And from what I've found, those are the providers, the doctors that I feel like are very invested in what insurance you have. Not from a standpoint of, we want to make sure everybody has this insurance or that insurance, but I just get a general feel of, it's more of a care for the person beyond just what goes on in the doctor's office. They a lot of those places give you rides to the doctor, and they have some kind of maybe not a social worker, but some kind of liaison that says, okay, do you have your insurance in line for next year? Did you qualify yourself or certify yourself for Medicaid for next year? Did you, they help them to get kind of their lives in order. So if you have value-based providers around you, go talk to them like tomorrow. If you want to get linked up with Dedicated, Colin Brown, I don't know if any of you know Colin. Colin's fantastic. I've known Colin for years. He actually used to work for Medigold. He's pretty high up in the Dedicated ranks, and he has actually just talked with him yesterday, and he's already promised that if any agents from our team need to get in, want to get in with Dedicated, want to work with them directly, we've got an in, not a problem. We do not have to go through the same vetting process that the average agent has to go through. So let me know if you want to talk to Colin. Grassroots marketing on your own. All right. There's, oh man, I think this will be huge this year. The food banks, the centers of influence, if you're talking to senior centers, or, just at your Walmart, if you're able to set up a table, there's a lot of very compliant verbiage that we can use. I've started working on stuff that I've already had deemed compliant from TLC to say, hey, a lot of people are going to lose their plans this year. Are you one of them? That type of thing. Um, I don't want to, in those grassroots types of things, you don't want to scare people. That's not the goal. Insurance is already scary enough. So it's all in the phrasing of it, making sure that they know that, hey, this is a possibility. I could, if I have Medicaid, I could lose my plan, but I also know someone who's here who can help. And setting yourself up as that person who will help, who's a professional, who's licensed, who's local. I think grassroots is going to be a huge deal this AEP, probably more than I can remember. And as I mentioned earlier, carriers don't want to lose their non-FIDE clientele. Um, so the Aetnas, Humanas, Uniteds, Devoteds, um, we've been talking with them to figure out, how are we going to attack this. Our new Humana rep, that's terrible. I just lost his name. Oh gosh, that's terrible. Great guy. He's so good. I remember his name. Um, Good guy. He's doing headshots now. Chris Sharp. He is an excellent resource, and I've had a couple of meetings with him to talk about this. Devoted, if you know Bob is fantastic, or Melita, depending on where you're at in Ohio. Excellent resources. Aetna and UHC, it's harder to find them a little bit closer to us, more on the ground, but they exist. Call it in and just say, hey, you know what, call up Aetna and say, what's your goal here? I want to help you reach your goal. How can I use your influence, the Aetna name, the United Healthcare name, to help these people? Um, Building relationships, and don't hesitate to discuss your own ideas. All right. Aetna, Humana, United Health, Devoted, all of those carriers, they're going to have their own ideas and things that they want. Ultimately, our goal is to help the client. Okay. They will say that. Yes. I believe that. But us, I mean, this is a very well established thing that independent agents, we do what's right. And we are there, those 150,000 people that are going to lose coverage if they're not careful. We're there to help and tell those people they need to know. I think that's a big deal with our agents, is when our agents talk to those carrier liaisons like Bob or like Rachel with Med Mutual, or Tom or Joe, whoever you work with for Medigold. They know what our hearts are, and don't be afraid to share that and say, there's a lot of people who are going to be hurting. So how can I help? How can I do this? How can you use me and I use you to reach these people? It's going to be work for sure. um, but it's going to be well worth it, I believe. um, all right, so that was a very high level overview of the DSNP FIDE stuff that's coming down the line. Um, I've started putting together a sheet that will show exactly what benefits each level qualifies for. So QDWI, QI, Slim B Plus, Quimby Plus, FBDE, all that they qualify for. I've started working on that. As soon as that's done, I'm hoping by early next week, I'm going to send that out as PDF. Um, um, that's, knowing that kind of information, I think can help. It doesn't really help the client so much as you, and knowing how to speak with them, and kind of knowing which direction to take with clients. So I will be putting that out. I'll obviously be putting these slides out. As soon as we get any carrier information, we're going to be putting that out. There's no reason to not. Hopefully, some of you have started on AHIP. I did finish it the other day. It's actually not that bad this year, I didn't think. Of course, AHIP doesn't tell you anything really to speak of on the FIDE world, but that's our jumping off point. So I'm sure I've not done any carrier certifications yet, but I'm sure some of these carrier certifications will have some FIDE information, especially those big four: Anthem, CareSource, Buckeye, and Molina. So, what questions do you have for me? Let me stop the sharing here, and I can unmute everyone. Let's see how I can do this here. Mm, okay. Okay. If you just want to ask a question, that's totally fine. You'll just have to unmute yourself now.
So basically, anybody that's on non-FIDE will just have to go to a regular MAPD plan or a CSNP.
Yep.
That's going to be eye-awakening.
It's going to be ugly. Yeah, it's I started looking at my book with that, and I just started. I don't want to go back to it now. And I feel bad for them because, they've been used to a certain level of coverage for the last however many years, and now it's just not going to happen.
I
What
went to a
else?
training. They didn't say that, I guess. Or if they did, I missed that.
Okay. Yeah, I was
They
talking
said they
to.
put on original Medicare or something if they don't change by January 1.
Right. So yeah, if they don't change by January 1, they do not get crosswalked to any plan out there. They just lose what they have, and they go to um, original Medicare A and B, which would be it'll be very tough to get them back on an MA. You're going to have to use an SEP. You couldn't use OEP. Um, I'm
Oh,
gonna guess that they have to create some kind of SEP for those who have lost that coverage.
oh my Lord. I don't have very many, which I was surprised. I thought that would be my heart market down here, but
Okay.
I
Do you
don't
know?
know.
There's a guy that I met early when I first started. His name's Anthony Quarles.
Hmm.
Really good agent, nice guy. I like him a lot. And Anthony he was like the DSNP king. He would only do DSNPs, and he would just travel from library to library in Columbus and writing DSNPs. And I haven't talked to Anthony in, oh gosh, a couple years. I haven't seen him in a while, but I can't even imagine like what he's going through right now.
Yeah.
I mean, his heart is for only those people on DSNPs, and oh, that's got to be tough right now.
Yeah, that would definitely not be good.
What other questions?
I'll ask another one. So
Sure.
the non-FIDE still has they still will have a SEP every month.
So if the non-FIDE will have an SEP. I'm frozen there. There we go. They'll have that monthly um, CSNP SEP,
So only if they're
um,
on SNP.
but only if they're going to a CSNP. Yeah, so there's there's other ways of those using those SEPs to kind of to your advantage. I know there's the SEP. I had a change in my level of Medicaid, um,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna guess that's gonna be used a lot. Um, it wasn't necessarily maybe a change in these people's Medicaid levels. Just they didn't realize that there was a change in the DSNP plans. So I'm guessing a lot of agents will try to use that, and I don't know if that will fly or not.
January.
So yeah, it has the potential to be extremely ugly.
I had a meeting, somebody else set it up, but invited me to our Perry County Job and Family Services
Oh yeah,
with
with Charles and Valerie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that went well. I don't know exactly how that's going to work,
Hmm.
but they seemed, because they had a meeting then with Ohio or somebody about all this
Okay.
after we met them. So I don't know.
Yep. Yep. There's still so many moving parts, and it's kind of hard to nail down right now. I mean, this is up to date as of last Friday. No, I take that back. I finished this a couple Fridays ago. So the slideshow is up to date as of a couple Fridays ago. And, the way that DSNPs and all that world can change. I mean, who knows? This could be outdated and we don't even know it yet. I don't think it is, but I'm sure there will be more changes because that's what Ohio does. That's what all these states do is, they make these changes on the fly and then say, react, you'll be fine. Um, so I think the biggest thing is staying plugged in for our own benefit, staying plugged in. Any DSNP, FIDE emails you see coming from carriers, read them in great detail. I'm the first to say that I will look at some of these emails coming in and be like, just delete it. I know all I can know about this or that or the other, and and I shouldn't be that way, but I know I do. So at this point, any emails that I'm getting, I'm reading them, going through them with a fine tooth comb, and anything I do find, I will be putting on the group chat. I need to update our group chat texting to add a few more of your phone numbers here, but also I'll put it in an email format. So if there's important information, we got to know it. And like I said, just be staying plugged in with that. Anything else? All right. I'll take that as a no. So, if you do have any questions about, let me do this real quick here. I want to stop recording. There we go.